Good morning. I just dropped the dog off for grooming, and I've got a little time in the car. And I just finished listening to one of my favorite apps, Pray As You Go, talking about the Sunday readings that we had this weekend. And it strikes me that this is such a powerful thing to share. This is a reading that you've heard, I've heard so many times. This is Philippians 2. And so in our lives, we often run into people who think they know more than we do about anything and everything. And coming into the political season, which we are seeing more and more on TV and in the paper, and we're all kind of holding our breath, and what happened on the Hill this weekend, there are many people who will jockey for positions of authority and the loudest voice, and they will tell us that we don't know what they know, and we never will. And sometimes our buttons are pushed, I'm guilty of that too, where there's a need to want to assert that we're not as dumb as we seem, and that actually we do know quite a bit. We've been here for a while, we have expertise in certain areas, and even if people don't ask us for that expertise, it's there within us. And so we can be an authority on some things, and we may feel a need to push back when there are people who are throwing their weight around, flaunting their authority and maybe their lived experience. But this reading from Philippians gets us right there. And it talks about not just who Jesus is, but how we are like Jesus. So what does it mean to put the needs of others first and to think of others as better and smarter than we are? That's what this reading provokes in us. That's what it promotes to us. Think of others as being smarter than you are, intentionally, and living out of that reality where we don't need to correct people when they've thought of us as less than we think of ourselves. When I was a child, and I've shared this before, my father would look at our report cards when we'd come home from school. And he told me, Monique, the first thing I'm looking at is your effort. I'm not looking at your grades. I'm looking at your effort and your conduct. What do those 2 points reveal to me as your father of where you are and what you do when you're not with me, when you're at school, when you're learning, when you're with your friends? And it's still so striking to me, and there's a tremendous parallel for this for me as well, for the reading we're talking about today. Our effort at putting others first, at thinking of others more positively than we think of ourselves. This is a struggle. And Jesus is not lauded to us and held to us and said, see, look how good he is. See how much better God is, Jesus is, than you are. The point that St. Paul makes here is, look how we have this in common. Jesus struggled in the same way. Can you imagine when the Pharisees would start talking about God to Jesus and shaming Jesus, putting Jesus in Jesus' place, like, you should know better, we know better, we've studied the Torah, we can tell you a little bit about the divine. Can you imagine? Did Jesus have to bite his tongue? How did Jesus navigate pride in others, arrogance, or the sway of authority in others? And this is what St. Paul says, that we are alike, that model ourselves after Jesus, not because Jesus is this paragon of virtue, but because Jesus also struggled with this. So the similarity, Jesus lays before us, you can do this because I did this too. I understand where you're coming from. My heart is with you. don't give up.